I think they have the potential to become more valuable than the teams the AAC just lost. What's up, everybody? It's Trey Smith. Welcome to another episode of the College Game Time podcast. I have got a locked and loaded schedule for today's show, and I'm going to start with some breaking news. It's not really news, but it's breaking, and it's a report. But before I get into it, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment at the end, share it with a friend. If you're listening on Spotify, which the link is in the description, those of you watching on YouTube that prefer Spotify, I've got that set up, and I'll have Apple shortly. But if you're listening on one of those streaming platforms, give it a 5-star rate and review, help it get up there in the algorithm, and let's take this podcast to #1 on the charts. Very excited. Our first official episode last night. Within the first 24 hours, it's about to hit 3,000 downloads, plays, listens, views, all of the above. Over 3,000 actually. So anyways, let's get to tonight. And let's start with this SMU to the ACC report that just came out from Yahoo News and Sports Illustrated's Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports. ACC considering SMU in addition to Cal and Stanford in expansion talks. Now, this is fresh. I need to think on this one before I really give my perspective and comments on it. But I'll give you sort of my 3 knee jerks to seeing this news pop up as I'm getting ready to record this episode. First thing is the AAC worried about losing more teams? And so they're bringing SMU into the fold, right? There's a lot of smoke around Florida State, Clemson to the SEC. We know the Big Ten wants to add North Carolina and Virginia. So is the ACC trying to prepare for a little bit bigger of an exodus than initially thought? I think you also got to throw Miami in there. I think the Big Ten has expressed interest in them in the past as well. So is the ACC trying to gear up for losing more teams? That's the first knee jerk. The second knee jerk is, are things not going as planned with Stanford and Cal? I don't know if maybe Cal's saying, we can't afford this. What you're sending us, what we have, we got to figure some other option if there is one. Or is Stanford going, we're just going to go independent? Stanford should just say, we're going to go independent. And if the ESPN, if you networks need West Coast coverage, then you come sign an exclusive deal with us. Or we're going to go sign an exclusive deal with Apple. Kidding. But that's what makes all this realignment stuff so frustrating, but also so exciting and very fluid, is the fact that the networks are controlling everything, which sucks for the purity of the game. But it's also the reason why things are literally changing every hour, in some case every half hour. So obviously right now, as I'm recording this, SMU is linked to the ACC. By the time I get it done, edited and posted, or exported and posted, it could be a totally different ball game. So anyways, 1, is the ACC planning on losing more teams? 2, are things not going as planned with Stanford and Cal? And then 3, is this all just a smokescreen for something else? Is it a smokescreen from the ACC side? Is it a smokescreen from the SMU side? It's no secret that SMU is desperately trying to go Power 5 or Power 4 or Power 2, whatever. But get into that Autonomous 5 like we talked about last night as it pertains to the AAC, which it sounds like it might be the Autonomous 4 because the Pac-12 is about done, so that would take them out, which from my vantage point, if you're the AAC, getting back to the conversation from last night, all right, that opens up a spot. Not that they would allow someone in, but, if you need a 3-2 vote, you need a majority. Not an expert on how all that works. Some of you actually are probably more fluent in that language as far as the Autonomous 5 and, the bureaucracy that surrounds it and how people get in and out of it or whatever. Quite frankly, I'm ready to talk football, but either way, SMU's trying to get into that club. And I mean, I'm starting to think they may even pay their way in if that's what it's going to require, but I think that would be stupid for them to do. I personally think they need to just kind of hang tight and just let a couple more dominoes fall, mainly the Stanford Cal. Because if the ACC is just another burning ship like the Pac-12 was, well, then SMU fans, you're just in for another year-long journey of thinking you're going to go Power 5, just to at the 11th hour realize, oh, this conference doesn't even exist anymore. So not saying that's going to happen, but it just maybe sit tight and see if maybe the situation you're in can improve significantly more, if not to the point of reaching that autonomy status. So, is it a smokescreen? Are things not going as planned with Stanford and Cal? Or is the ACC planning on losing more teams? You let me know what you think. Do you think this would be wise for ACC? Do you think this would be wise for SMU? What are your thoughts in the comments? I'm curious to know. Let's move on to the next thing. And it was the Dennis Dodd report from earlier today about the sort of rumored Pac-12 Mountain West merger, right? There was a meeting that happened on Monday, and that conversation has sort of bled over into some of the things I've been discussing on this channel, and there have been some comments and some chatter that I've seen on this channel that I also want to address in this episode as it pertains to that merger, because the AAC was kind of being linked into that. But bottom line is, Dennis Dodd of CBS reported that the Mountain West Conference and the Pac-12 possibility of a merger is dead. It's done. And according to his report, I don't have it in front of me. Actually, yes, I do. It was San Diego State that was attempting to sort of broker this whole deal, and it failed. So San Diego State being another team who desperately wants to go Power 5, understandably so. And this was, I guess, their last Hail Mary to try and keep the pack together, according to the report. Didn't work, so that is not going to happen. Now, in the midst of that talk, there was also some talk of, should the AAC look to merge with the Mountain West to bring in those remaining 4 Pac schools, and then collectively that sort of cohort or collection of teams can maintain the autonomous 5 status together. And what I've seen people suggesting, which I adamantly disagree with, is that the Americans should offload their newcomers and basically take their existing members, maybe the top tier, and sort of merge with the Mountain West and add the 4 Pac schools. And so obviously the newcomers they're referring to are schools like Rice, FAU, Charlotte, UAB, UNT, and UTSA. And I want to sit here and try to make a case today. Let me make sure I got my updated notes here for why, in my opinion, that's a horrible idea. Get this on my screen. Here we go. Sorry if y'all just heard a noise. Because between those 6 teams, let me start here, okay? A lot of people have been down on Oresco, right? Because he lost the teams that he lost, and then the decisions and the choices of who he made to bring in. I mean, I personally kind of like the teams that he brought into the conference, and I'm going to try and share with you in this episode tonight as to why. And I'm going to try and go fast, but, sorry, I keep losing my notes. So basically you had UCF, Houston leave, and then everyone's been, he replaced them with Charlotte and FAU and Rice and UTSA and these schools. And it's almost like, what was he supposed to do? Who was he supposed to go after and get? And I know some of the schools, some of you are going to leave in the comments right now, and go ahead and put them. That's fine. But if you'll just hang with me for just a second, let me talk you through why I believe that the teams that he's added have the potential to become just as valuable to the conference as Houston and UCF and Cincy were, if not more valuable. Okay? I'm going to mainly parallel a couple of these teams to Houston and UCF, because if you go back in time to when Houston and UCF joined the AAC, they were coming from a very similar situation as a couple of teams who just got added from the Conference USA. Cincy's a little bit different, obviously, because they were coming from the Big East, so I'm going to probably kind of leave them out of this particular discussion. But let's just kind of go through the list. And I'm going to go through, I put a tweet up earlier today, and it sparked some good conversation about the lack of foresight I feel like some people have as it pertains to the new additions to the American Athletic Conference and the value that they potentially will be able to bring with the increased revenue and exposure that they're going to be getting for the American being in the American Conference. And I'm going to start at the top of my list. Well, I'll go Rice, okay? Listen, I'll give you Rice if you're one of the people making this argument. All right. I mean, unfortunately, I hear you on that. I don't know that I would include Rice into one of the programs that's just going to add a ton of value. Academically, sure. Competitively, I don't know. Now, they do have the kid, the former USC, Georgia, West Virginia, JT Daniels is a quarterback now. They got the McCaffrey brother out there as well. So, hey, we'll see. But listen, I'll give you Rice. FAU, quite frankly, I haven't seen a lot of disrespect towards FAU. And I'm sure it has to do with the Final Four run this past year in basketball, combined with the Lane Kiffin years in football that brought a lot of notoriety to the program, even as a Conference USA program. The basketball coach seems planted, seems like he wants to stay there. He signed, I think, a 10-year extension. Pretty much has his whole team coming back. And I think they're going to be a very competitive basketball team during this upcoming season. And look, obviously coaching changes and they sign these extensions. Do they really matter? Could they jump ship? But here's what I'll say. What was it? Dusty May, he was the hottest coach on the market this past March. And he stayed put. Sounds like he really likes it in South Florida, Boca Raton, FAU. So I think football and basketball. Then you throw in the fact that Tom Herman's coaching the football team. Not saying Tom Herman's going to be there long, but what he's shown in the past, like at Houston, whether he's there 1, 2, 3 seasons, I expect them to have some very good years under Tom Herman at FAU football. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if they're playing for a conference championship this year. Look at his roster, look at his team, and then look what he did at Houston. This is not new for him. And, he's reunited with Casey Thompson. I actually asked him about him at AAC Media Days, but I'm not going to rabbit trail there. But FAU, like I said, they haven't really popped up. But let's start with the first team. So we got Charlotte. I understand people's frustrations with the addition of Charlotte when you just look at them on paper, their recent history, and I'm talking football now, right? A 3-9 team coming from the Conference USA, didn't really make a lot of noise there. But here's the thing. They hit a home run with their head coaching hire with Biff Poggi. Okay, and I saw someone had put up on Twitter today, they hired a high school, went 3-9, hired a high school coach. Well, let me just tell you, refresh your memory or inform you for the first time in case you don't already know, and I shared this with the individual who commented that earlier today, is an article I wrote about Biff Poggi, because I'm going to continue to say that I was one of the 3 people at AAC Media Days that asked him a question, and I specifically asked him about his roster and his recruiting footprint in the DMV, where he is a legend. And what he shared was, obviously they want to recruit Charlotte, North Carolina, South Carolina. A lot of good players there, but he said they have a strong presence in the DMV. And if you look at that roster, they have 52 new players, 16 transfers from Power 5 schools, and 25 players that are from St. Francis Academy, which is where he was a head coach in the DMV area. But 16 transfers from Power 5, and a lot of those were SEC. 52 new players. This is not the same team that went 3-9. And I'm going to tell you, as someone who was in attendance at AAC Media Days and seeing the different players that were there representing the different schools, Charlotte by far, from my eyes, had the biggest dudes there. Not saying that there weren't other dudes that were big. FAU had a lineman that was huge as well, but it was Charlotte, walking together. I mean, they had some big dudes. And I know it's not always about how big your team is, but point being is this is not the same 3-9 team. Then you throw in what Biff Poggi is adding from a marketing standpoint, which, yes, that matters. He went viral for the table slap. He's going viral for cookie reviews. He's going viral for the cigar in his mouth. He's going viral for cut off sleeves. Guys, he's building interest in the conference, whether you like it or not. That's a good thing. So having him there and what he's already done with the roster. Now, look, it's yet to be seen what translates to the field. But what he's done from a roster turnover standpoint and from a marketing standpoint, Charlotte's going to be a valuable team in this conference. And oh, by the way, there's a lot of money in Charlotte as well. So let's keep it moving. All right, let's talk about UAB. UAB reminds me, if you look at their recent 5-year history under Coach Bill Clark, and now they have Trent Dilfer. Well, let's just start there. They hired Trent Dilfer, former Super Bowl champion. Okay, yes, he's in the first year, and yes, he's had an unorthodox path to being a head Division I football coach, but he hired who I believe is the best kept secret in all of college football, and Coach Mortensen, the former analyst at Alabama who's been there for nearly the last decade. He's been a foundational pillar of what that Bama program has done. People have been trying to hire him away from Nick Saban for years, and finally he decided that he wanted to leave and head to UAB to be with Coach Dilfer. So that's Alex Mortensen, former Razorback quarterback, former Samford quarterback, and spent like a little bit of time with the Tennessee Titans before getting into coaching. So look at their recent history coming into the conference. It mirrors very much what Houston and even UCF looked like when they transitioned from the Conference USA to the American. UAB had 2 conference championships in the last 5 years. They've been to 5 bowl games, and they had an 11-win season. That's a solid program. Last year, they kind of had that gap interim year. I don't even remember who their coach was, but it was a gap year before bringing Dilfer in, who appears to be leading the program in the right direction. They've got a former Baylor transfer as their quarterback. So we'll see what they can do in year 1, but I have no doubt that give Dilfer some time, and he's going to build that program back to what they were doing back with Bill Clark when they were competing for conference championships, even though it was a different conference. Just like Houston. If you look at Houston before they came in, they had 3 bowl games, 2 Conference USA championship game appearances. They did not win. That was between Sumlin and I think Tony Levine maybe was his name. I don't have it in front of me. But they had a 10-win season, an 11-win season. They come into the American, and in year 3, they're winning a New Year's Six Bowl, finishing 12-1. That was Tom Herman's first year at Houston. So it didn't take them long to adjust. And really, people talk about how valuable Houston is, and I get it. It's more from the basketball program, okay? But football-wise, I mean, outside of the Herman era, I mean, they hadn't really, turned any major corner, done anything beyond that. So I could see UAB having a similar transition to the league that Houston had, where by year 3, they're a force to be reckoned with in the American. And then, of course, you have UCF, who came in the same year as Houston. They're a little bit different. See, I think UTSA is built a little bit more like UCF as it pertains to their debut season in the conference. And I got a couple minutes here. I'm going to try and wrap this up quick. But UTSA, they've got Jeff Traylor, who's 30-10. Half of those losses were in his first season, so he's 23-5 over the last 2 seasons, back-to-back conference championships. He's gotten UTSA in the top 25 from the Conference USA the past 2 seasons. He's got both of his studs coming back. He's a legendary Texas high school coach, especially out in East Texas. He seems committed to UTSA as he signed a significant extension a couple of years ago. Listen, if A&M or the Longhorns come and offer him a job in the next couple years, former Texas high school coach, icon kind of in that network, those jobs don't come around very often. Hey, I wouldn't hate him for leaving for one of those or anything like that, but he does seem committed to UTSA, and he's done a phenomenal job. But I compare them to UCF because UCF came into the league. They had a conference championship. They had an 11-win and a 10-win season. They'd been to 3 bowls, but they were built. I mean, they were bringing back a very good team. And in their first year, they went 12-1 or 13-1, and it was the season that they beat Baylor in the Fiesta Bowl. Don't be shocked if UTSA has a similar debut into the conference. See, we look at what UCF, Houston, and Cincy, what those programs are today leaving, and it's like you can't expect the teams that came in to have that same profile. But give those teams coming in a couple of seasons with this, maybe not even a couple for a couple of them, but with the revenue, the increased exposure, being on ESPN, and next thing you know, you've got a cohort of teams, 4 or 5 teams, that now have the same value as the 3 teams you just lost. And then finally, I want to talk about North Texas, because this is a team that I feel like flies under everybody's radar. And this could be the team that really benefits the most from playing in the American Athletic Conference. So let me start here. They've got 375,000 alum living in the DFW Metroplex. I'm one of them. Okay, I've got degrees. If you follow me, you know I got a degree from University of Arkansas, and I have a degree from North Texas. Okay, and I'm going to talk about when they played each other in just a second, which is it's bittersweet. But this is a team where they're located. They could build a roster that competes for conference championships year in and year out without having to drive further than 90 minutes because of where they're located. And what I mean is by getting the low-hanging fruit in the area where they're at. They don't even have to go get the top guys. Just go get the lower-tiered guys. And you're going to have a lot better chance at getting them now with the increased revenue and exposure that you will have to offer. This is what I thought was interesting. Since 2018, they've played 3 regular season games on linear ESPN TV. And you can fact check that. But 3, I believe 2 of them were on the SEC network and 1 was on ESPNU. And you know what happened in one of those 3 games? They went viral. They were the talk of college football, all over media networks, all over social media. And yes, I'm talking about the fake fair catch in the game where they went into Fayetteville and absolutely demolished Chad Morris's Arkansas Razorbacks. Unbelievable. So this is a team, and I think that year they won 9, maybe 10 games. I don't remember specifically, but they had Mason Fine. They had Jalen Guyton, who was a former Allen Eagle from Allen, Texas, who went to Notre Dame and transferred back. I feel like that's the type of guys they could attract more of as they get into this conference and like I said, continue to get that exposure, that revenue, that access. I mean, now they're in a conference where if they win the conference, they could get a playoff spot. North Texas has never had that level of access. So now if you can take those elements and try to connect with that alum of 375,000, which look, most of them have other teams they cheer for, whatever. But if you can start to become somewhat relevant in linear, like national TV, like you're going to be able to engage those people. And so, I don't know, man. I feel like UNT, UTSA, UAB, Charlotte, and of course FAU, like I think they have the potential to become more valuable than the teams the AAC just lost. And I think it could help make that case to try to make a bid for autonomous 5 status, even though it sounds like that's about to go to autonomous 4, which, I mean, the writing's been on the wall for that for a while now. We're just waiting on the Pac-12 to officially dissolve. But anyways, I'm approaching 25 minutes. I said I'm going to keep this podcast between 18 and 26 minutes. I think wait, am I looking at the wrong clock? Maybe I'm closer to 23 minutes. Okay, I got whatever. Either way, that's it for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you agree with, disagree with? Do you disagree that these new additions could become valuable? And if so, that's fine, but tell me why. Or do you agree with it? Do you like the direction that the conference is headed? Or do you feel like Oresco has set the table for further expansion, 1, in the future, but then 2, to maybe sort of become that 5th conference in the pecking order? Whether you get that autonomy 5 status or not, you're still that next conference in line. And let me know your thoughts. That's it for me today. Trey Smith, College Game Time.